Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for a final daily dose of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty Alchemy spoilers. So we got the full set, all 30 cards are out. We're going to talk about the last of them today, but before we do, a couple of quick reminders. One is, if you want to keep up on all the latest spoilers, not just for Alchemy, but for every set, you can find them all over at MTGPreviews.com. Number two, if you want some physical Magic cards, you can get them from our amazing sponsor Card Kingdom by heading over to cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish and even get a free goldfish sticker. Just let them know you want one in your order notes and they will hook you up. Anyway, let's talk about Alchemy. So first up today, we got a little illusion 1-drop holographic double, a 1-mana 1/1 illusion that for 1 mana can exile itself from your hand, and you choose a creature card in your hand and you conjure a duplicate of it into your hand. So holographic double, I'm not really sure what to say about this card. I think this card is probably good, but it does come with a downside. So the upside is, if you have this in your hand, along with another better creature, for 1 mana, you can get another copy of that better creature. It's uncounterable. All you do is exile it from your hand. That seems really powerful. The bad news is, it's pretty bad off the top in the late game. In the late game, if you draw this and you don't have other creatures or other good creatures, it's kind of just a 1 mana 1/1 that's not really going to do anything. So we'll have to wait and see. The upside is very high. Getting another Goldspan Dragon or whatever, Righteous Valkyrie, whatever your best card is, does seem to offer potential. We'll have to see if the risk-win reward plays out in a way that actually makes this card playable. I think the card, at a minimum, is unique and fun. Whether or not it's actually good, or if it's just going to be too inconsistent since it's such a bad top deck in the late game, that remains to be seen. Next up, we got a pretty sweet ninja in Swarm Saboteur, a 2-mana 2/1 human ninja. It has ninjutsu of 2, it has Death Touch, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you conjure a card named Virus Beetle into your hand. So Swarm Saboteur calls back to two of the best ninjas in Magic's history. Ninja the Deep Hours, Ingenious Infiltrator. The most powerful thing that ninja decks do, literally across formats, all the way back to Legacy really, is ninjutsu into play these card draw ninjas and snowball that value. Swarm Saboteur is kind of the same thing. In ninjutsu's for 2, and when it hits your opponent, you get to draw a card. You're always drawing a Virus Beetle though. So I don't know, is Virus Beetle better or worse than a random card? My guess is a little bit worse, but still, you are drawing a card, and Virus Beetle isn't bad, especially against like control decks. You can play it and start attacking your opponent's hand, getting your opponent empty-handed so they can't deal with your ninjas. So I do think this card is very playable. Remember, we don't have Ingenious Infiltrator in Alchemy. We don't have Ninja the Deep Hours in Alchemy. So in Alchemy in specific, I feel like this is going to fill that role as the 2-mana ninjutsu card draw ninja. So if you're playing ninjas in Alchemy, I think this is an auto include. If you're playing them in Historic, you might play it as like a 1 of or a 2 of, but there you do have all the real card draw ninjas, Ingenious Infiltrator and Ninja the Deep Hours. So we'll have to wait and see just how good it is in Historic ninjas. But really, I mean, this calls back to 2 of the best ninjas ever made, so I think it's gotta be playable somewhere. Speaking of the best ninjas ever made, we actually got another version of this effect in Jukai Liberator, 3-mana 3/3 Snake Ninja. Ninjutsu's for 2. When it deals combat damage, you choose land or non-land, and you seek a permanent card of the chosen type. So you're gonna get a random non-land or land card from your library. So essentially this is another Swarm Saboteur, Ninja the Deep Hours, Ingenious Infiltrator, although this one is actually even upgraded. I honestly think this is better than Ninja the Deep Hours. Maybe not quite as good as Ingenious Infiltrator since that triggers on all your ninjas. This card is very, very powerful, although it does have one problem, which is the ninja decks we've seen in Historic and in Standard tend to be blue-black rather than Sultai. I know this one we're looking at, it does have a slight splash of green, and with Secluded Courtyard and the good mana in Historic and in Alchemy, you can make it work if you want to. So that's the only question, like, are you willing to play a bunch of green mana to make this work? If you do, this is one of the most powerful ninjas in either format. This is a better Ninja the Deep Hours. The only question is the color. Are green ninjas gonna be the way forward for the deck? And I think honestly, because of this card in specific, I think there's actually a pretty big argument to make your ninja deck Sultai, or at least splash into Sultai, like this Historic historic deck we were looking at rather than going straight blue-black, just because this card is so powerful. We also got a really strong new samurai, an Imperial Blade Master, a 3-mana 2/2 human samurai with double strike. And whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, you get to draft a card from its spellbook, which is essentially a bunch of samurai. None of the heaviest hitters, you're not getting like the rares or whatever, but still you got some pretty good cards. There's also a couple samurai flavored cards, Jano Uprising, Eater of Virtue, which aren't technically samurai but work in the deck. And I think this is one of the best samurai in existence now for the alchemy format, also for historic, I guess, although I don't know if samurai are going to make it in historic, but this card's really powerful. So if you're trying to make samurai work with Ishins and Ryus or whatever, I think Imperial Blade Master is just an auto include. There's not a ton of good samurai in existence. The deck, after you get past Ishin and Ryu, is kind of scraping around for the next best options. I think this immediately slots into that S tier class along Ishin and Ryu, where you're going to play this in your samurai deck 100% of the time. It works really well with cheap samurai as well. Remember, it triggers whenever a samurai or warrior attacks, not when it attacks, as long as it's attacking alone. So this means you can like Selfless Samurai on turn 2, this on turn 3, immediately attack, get your value out of it, draft that first card, get another samurai for the next turn. So this card's just really good. If you're playing samurai, play this card. It's just a really powerful effect for a tribe that could use a little boost of power. We also got Consuming Oni, a big old demon, a 4-mana 6/6 with flying and menace. And it says, at the beginning of your end step, a random non-link card in your hand perpetually gains. When you cast this spell, you lose 3 life. So essentially, way undercosted, but with a drawback that eventually, if you're not empty-handed, you're going to lose some life as you cast your spells. We've seen a bunch of cards like this in Magic's past. We've seen like Desecration Demon, Abyssal Persecutor, Demon of Catastrophes, Inverter of Truths, these undercosted, overpowered demons that have a relatively big drawback. And some of these cards have been relatively good, although it's been a while since we've seen these cards actually see play in constructed formats. Like Desecration Demon was great, but that was a long time ago now. We're talking almost a decade ago. Is a card like this still good? I really don't know. The upside is, it seems like a great top end of a curve in some sort of mono-black aggro deck. Maybe in historic, maybe we have the pieces to do it in alchemy, but I can imagine if you just curve out Knight of the Even Legion, Soul Ripper, Spawn of Mayhem into Consuming Oni, that's a pretty good curve, because remember, if you can get empty-handed or only have lands in hand, then its drawback doesn't really do anything. So this is a great last card in your hand. On the other hand, it's kind of just big and it doesn't do anything positive right away. Like the first turn it comes into play, it's just a big blocking body that's actually has a drawback in a lot of scenarios where you're going to add a 3 life tax to one of the cards in your hand. So there is risk here that you just play this and tax yourself and then your opponent kills it and you kind of get nothing of value. But still, considering how big its stats are, it's got to be in the conversation. On the other hand, once you get back to like historic, would you rather just have something like Rankle? Rankle isn't as big by any stretch. It's only a 3/3, but it comes down with haste. It generates immediate value. So we're going to have to wait and see. My guess is there could be a deck to play this, some sort of mono-black stompy, mono-black aggro deck, but it's also possible that the fact that the first turn it comes into play, it doesn't do anything positive, and you gotta wait to untap with it, makes it just a little bit worse than some of the other options, but still, with stats like this, it's definitely in the conversation to be playable. We also got Chronicle of Worship, which is maybe my favorite card from this alchemy release. 2-mana 1/1 human monk. When it enters a battlefield, put a random shrine card from among the top 7 cards of your library into your hand. It perpetually gains. This spell costs 1 less to cast, and then shuffle, and then it adds a mana of any color. So I feel like if you want to build shrines in alchemy, this is an auto include. It does everything you want. It finds a shrine, it reduces the cost of a shrine, and it's a mana fixing mana dork, because shrines really want to be 5 colors. So if you want to take the shrine challenge in alchemy, it's great. Once you get back to historic, things become a little bit more questionable. Historic has much better ramp, including Sanctum Weaver, which is kind of just one of the most powerful ramp spells ever printed if you're playing an enchantment deck like Shrines would be. There's also stuff like Wolfwillhaven that is less likely to die. So I still think that Chronicle of Worship is in the conversation for historic shrines. I would definitely play it over Wolfwillhaven. I think I would not play it over Sanctum Weaver, although I might play it alongside Sanctum Weaver, getting a little bit extra redundancy there. But still, it's a really powerful card, and I really wish that this existed in paper. Like a paper version of this that I could play in Modern or play in Pioneer in my Shrine deck would be so good. I know they'd have to make some changes. It couldn't have the perpetually thing, but really a dork like this that ETBs finds you a Shrine out of your top 7 and then also adds mana would be so sweet for casual Shrine decks in paper formats as well. We also got Molten Impact, a nice little removal spell. 2 mana, 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker. If excess damage was dealt this way, the next time you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals damage equal to the excess damage to target creature or planeswalker. So essentially, this is kind of a twist on like a lava coil or something. You're getting 4 damage for 2 mana. Nice upside is you can hit planeswalkers, which is a little bonus. And then you get this weird twist where if you kill, like, let's say a 2/2, you kill a grizzly bears with this card. The next time you cast an instant or sorcery, you're going to get that 2 damage to throw at something else. Does it make it better than lava coil or the other similar options? I think it depends on the deck. It depends on the meta. Like, if you're using this to snipe a bunch of little creatures, it's actually a meaningful upside. It can be a 2-for-1. You kill a 1/1 on turn 2, and then the next turn you cast another spell and get to kill the next thing your opponent plays. That's really powerful. On the other hand, if you're mostly killing 4/4s with it, or the exile mode of Lava Coil is especially relevant, you're getting rid of Arclight Phoenixes or other recursive threats, then Lava Coil might still be better. But I think Molten Impact, definitely in the conversation as a playable removal spell. Worst case, I think it's a great sideboard card. If you got a bunch of spells in your deck, you can bring this in as a 2-for-1 against weenie decks that have a bunch of small creatures, and it's going to be really strong. So I think this card is certainly playable, although in a lot of ways, it's kind of just a twist on a lava coil. We also got Semblance Scanner, a pretty fun new equipment shapeshifter, a 3-mana 3/1. And it says whenever it or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, if it's not a token, conjure a duplicate of it into your hand and reconfigure for 1. So essentially, you play this, if you hit your opponent, you're going to get another copy of it. If you play this and reconfigure onto something and hit your opponent, as long as that thing's not a token, you're going to get a copy of that in your hand. So this is kind of a twist on maybe Miss Syndicate Naga or a really weird Ophidian where the card that you draw is always going to be another Semblance Scanner or the thing that it's equipped to. I think this card could have a chance to be playable. The downside is it's only got 1 toughness, which means it dies to literally everything all the way down to a Spike Field hazard, so it's certainly not resilient. But if you can start snowballing it, I can imagine playing like some sort of weird mono blue tempo deck where this is like your weird curious obsession. You know, play it and put it on a Spectral Adversary and hit your opponent and get another Spectral Adversary. So then you phase your opponent's stuff out again, and then you hit them again the next turn with a Spectral Adversary and phase their stuff out again. Or on a Dragon Turtle to like pseudo lock your opponent out of the game. So I think this card certainly has uses and can be really powerful, and it's another reconfigure 1 card. We've seen most of these alchemy cards have really low, cheap reconfigure costs compared to a lot of the standard ones where we had a lot of like 5 mana reconfigure. Reconfigure 1, really easy to move it around. So while I'm a little concerned that its creature mode is pretty fragile with just 1 toughness, I actually think in the right deck, this card could be quite powerful. We also got a new 1-drop for a modified deck, Artillery Enthusiast, a 1-mana 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you get to discard a card. If you do, you seek a card with a mana value equal to that card's mana value, and that gives modified creatures you control menace. So in a modified deck, I think this is fine as a 1-drop, although I will say, I think its looting ability actually isn't that exciting. If you think about looting in the early game, you're usually trying to do one of 2 things. Either you are discarding a land to find action, or you're discarding your most expensive card to try to find a land. Depending on how many lands you have in your hand, this is not very good in that scenario, because it's finding a card with the same mana value. So if you play this and discard a land, you're getting another 0 mana play, which is almost certainly going to be a land. If you play this and discard your most expensive card, because you need a land, you're just going to get another copy of your most expensive card or something else with that same mana value. So why I think this is fine in a modified deck, just because the menace mode and it's a fine 1-drop. Because of that, I do think that the looting mode is much less powerful than you think. I guess there could be situations where it's good, like if you build your deck in a way where you discard an Arclight Phoenix, and the only other 4-mana play in your deck is Arclight Phoenix, you know you're getting another Arclight Phoenix, which then you can discard and get another Arclight Phoenix. So there's probably some build-around potential, but just in a generic deck, I think that looting mode's actually like kinda underpowered because it just doesn't do what you want with looting in the early game. We also got Painful Bond, a new twist on Deadly Dispute. Painful Bond, 2-mana instant, draw 2 cards, then cards in your hand with mana value 3 or greater perpetually gain. When you cast a spell, you lose 1 life. So this is essentially a Deadly Dispute, with the downside that it's going to lose you some life most likely, but the upside that you don't have to sacrifice anything. You also don't get a treasure, which is a bummer. I'm actually not sure I'm actually not sure how good this card is. So if you're playing a deck that can't afford to sacrifice creatures, then this card is pretty good, especially if your average mana value is low. Like if your hand is all 2 drops or less, this doesn't actually cost you any life because it only taxes your 3 mana value or greater card. So some sort of like Lurrus style deck that doesn't want to be sacking creatures, this is just a draw 2 for 2, kind of a Sign in Blood that maybe has less pain and is instant speed. That's a powerful effect. On the other hand, I think some decks are still just going to prefer to play the Deadly Disputes, because in a lot of decks that are playing Deadly Dispute, they actually want to be sacking the creature. They want to sack the Eye Twitch. They want to sack the Shambling Gas. Plus, as we've seen, the treasure is really powerful. Going from 2 mana to 4 mana, 3 mana to 5 mana gets you to Lothar or Azeka's Chariot or Sorin or Edgar, whatever powerful thing you're doing. So I do think that Painful Bond is a powerful effect. I mean, it's a 2 mana draw 2. That's traditionally very playable, even with some pain attached. If you think about Sign in Blood, that's sorcery speed. You lose 2 life right away. In the right deck, this is probably just a huge upgrade, especially when you consider its instant speed. I don't think it just straight up replaces Deadly Dispute and those other sacrifice effects, because the decks that play those actively want the treasure and they actively want to be sacrificing their creature. But still, I think this card's good. I think it has potential. We just got a lot of weird competition, so I think it really depends on your build. Many builds still going to want the Deadly Dispute, but some builds that don't want to be sacrificing their creatures, like Mono Black Controller or something, some Lurrus decks, certainly can play this card and get a lot of value out of it. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our daily alchemy spoilers for today, and our daily alchemy spoilers forever, I guess. Like, we're done with this round of alchemy. We got all the new cards, so we're good for a few months at least. So let me know what you think. What cards are you excited about? Which ones are you gonna play? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.